But now you're probably wondering, like, who is this guy and why exactly is he doing a plus 30-hour course on how to become a digital nomad? Like, what are his motivations? Where does he take the expertise from? And so on. And that's why before we start, I want to tell you a little bit about myself, like what's actually my story, why I decided to become a digital nomad, how it's been my journey for the last 3.5 years, and also how eventually I came up with the idea to create this course for you. So here come some aspects about me. And the whole story starts 29 years ago with this guy here on the right side. Here a picture in front of Machu Picchu from April this year. I think unfortunately it was a little bit foggy, but cleared up later. And yeah, the whole story started 29 years ago in a small village in Germany, where this guy, Nicolas Eismann, that's my full name, but most people call me Nick or Nico, when he was born. And why am I emphasizing the 600 people village here? Because most of you probably know that Germany is not really famous for having an open mind. And I was born in Bavaria, which is also known to be the most conservative state, with the tendency that the more rural you get, the more close-minded people actually are. And yeah, this is how I grew up until 18. And well, I had a very nice childhood, I have to say. But at 18, that's normally the time that you move out. And for me, that was the time to start to study. So I started university. And it was my goal to graduate in finance, which I eventually did after 5 years. And yeah, everything was very, very like predetermined from the start, you know. In Germany, you do your school, then you go to university with already some plan in your head, like what you want to work in, you know. And for me, this was the plan of consultancy. I already had the chance to start working like in the management of a very like conservative company in the south of Germany, very close to my hometown, which I declined because I said I want to go to university. And then I thought like, okay, let's do consultancy. And this was also the job that I was really, really like working for all the time, like very, how do you say, very assertive. And that I actually started in also for a short time after my studies. During this time, I had the very, very lucky opportunity to study 2 semesters abroad, right? And my first semester was in Hong Kong. And I really lived there most of the time. Like there was not that much time to really go on trips exploring Southeast Asia. But still, the first thing I realized was like, wow, actually like the things somewhere else are done way differently than in your home country. And this already made me question like, okay, like, is that actually all good? How you lived it for the last like 21 years. I was 21 when I went to Hong Kong. And so the spark was already there. And the whole thing like intensified when I was going to places, like when I had some little time to explore places around Hong Kong. So you gotta say that Hong Kong is still a very Western society, right? So the difference was not that much felt as until I was going to, for example, Vietnam, going to those small villages and really see how people live there, you know, how happy they are apart from all of this rat race with materialism, having a big car, building a house, which I still see is like the German dream, you know, and this made me think a lot, you know, but it was not until the second semester in Taiwan that I eventually found this big passion of traveling, you know, and it was in Taiwan that in the first time in my whole life, because I was always working like on the side of my study, the first time in my life I felt really, really free. And free in time and free in place as well, because like I was traveling around Southeast Asia, and I remember that there was like this point where I rented a motorbike and really without thinking a lot, just like seeing what awaits me, I was riding with this motorbike through the island of Borneo and just had an amazing trip. And at this time, I felt like a freedom that I never felt before in my whole life. And I really realized that this was the feeling in life I was looking for. You know, this untamed freedom. And yeah, this, I guess, really dropped the seed in me. This like let the idea born of actually how can you live traveling the world and make this life memorable, far away of any like predetermined rat race materialistic dogmas. And well, with this idea in my head, you know, once an idea is planted, it's very hard to go away again. I eventually, yeah, caught this early enthusiasm for traveling, and exactly at this time where I felt this like incredible freedom, this like rush in my life that I was looking for all the time. People from my home country, Germany, were like texting me and were like, well, it's really good that you enjoy this right now, but it's also going to be time that you come home because the normal life is awaiting you. And this has really been awakening something in me, big resistance when I realized like, who the fuck is actually telling me what's the normal life? The only person that's deciding what's the normal life for me is me and myself. And I think this was really the point where I was sure I cannot lead a normal life, and I can not lead this life as what they say as is normal in my former home country, Germany. So with this idea, I came home, but still I had to work again. You know, I was working always in office jobs, and this already also continued when I was coming home after Taiwan, because then I really started to work in consultancy in this super boring capital infused sector where everybody is just like totally driven crazy by the next big car he can buy. And I was sitting there in my suit. And I was not just trapped by the suit. No, I actually also felt trapped in my head by work and the society's expectation that you actually have to do what society is thinking. And this in Germany is very predetermined. And I'm pretty sure it might be the same in your country. Otherwise, you won't be here. And predetermined, I mean like school, university, or apprenticeship. And then you start to work. Then you have maybe 2 weeks of vacation that you can spend for yourself. And with 67, you go into like a pension, and then you die at some point. And this was totally not the life I wanted. And I was sure at this point, this is also not the life I'm going to live. And overall, I was very pressured by the system. And this overall lack of freedom, like of this feeling I found and lost again through coming back, that made me very, very unhappy. And so I knew I had to change something. So basically from this point where I was sitting on the motorbike in Borneo and feeling this freedom, when I come back, I always was like mediating with myself, you know. First I thought, okay, consultancy is maybe nothing for me. But now let's go on a last big trip and then like become a doctor and still like find my place in this system that I actually did not like at all. But something happened on this last big trip. As you can already think, this was not the last big trip. And this had to do with digital nomads. And what was it? Well, after my master, when I said, okay, I'm going to give myself another half of year of really backpacking, I first time went to South America. And there I met my first digital nomad. So it was really the first time there I got in contact with them. Maybe at this point, it's also very important to say that I was always working on the side of my studies, right? I always tried to make myself a living and enable myself also those travels, you know, those weekend trips, but also that big one I'm talking about to Latin America. And actually, I was still doing that while being on the road, you know. I already worked when I was studying abroad, had my laptop with me, and the same was true for this trip to Mexico and further on other Latin American countries. And my pocket money that I made was like creating social media posts for local event coordinators, right? So I had my laptop, I was in communication with like the club hosts, with like the event host, the club owner, and he told me, okay, we have this event, and I was like taking pictures, arranging them, and posting them on Instagram and Facebook. So this is how I really barely kept myself over water while traveling, but it was still an okay money, especially in Latin American countries, and let me live this backpacking lifestyle that was just like my way of life to feel the freedom, you know. So it was a great trip, by the way. And when I was on the Galapagos Islands, actually a little bit before in Ecuador, I met a girl, and yeah, she was a digital nomad, and she did exactly the same that I did. Her name is Lola, and she is Canadian, and she was working for like gastronomic companies, like restaurants, like bars, and also clubs, and was taking care of their social media profiles, but on a way bigger scale than I did, like really working around 30 hours per week and making a good money around, like, I think it was 4,000 euros per month. And this really made me realize, like, wow, okay, this is actually possible. You know, you can travel, you don't have to work yourself to death, and you still have enough money to survive. And not even that, actually, in those places where we were traveling, this money was worth so much. And I was thinking a lot, and at this point I suddenly had the solution for the problem that I was facing. And the problem I was facing before I left was like, how will I practically sustain myself financially while traveling, while living traveling? And Lola gave me the inspiration. And with this thought, I came home. I, of course, canceled my plan to become a professor and work in the university. And it was in March 2020 that I started my online marketing business that was like born out of this like social media post creating company. And the online business was called Cool Eyes Creatives. And the goal, I think, at this point, or I'm sure, was already to become a digital nomad. But again, I was mediating. I was mediating with my dream because I came home and people said, hey, what are you doing now with your life? You know, you're not going to be a professor, so how you going to make money? And really, people were doubting a lot about my own company. And so I thought, like, well, it's maybe not a good idea to really get on the road again right away. Maybe it's better to get back to this normal life and started in Berlin, because this was really the city in Germany that was most appealing to me. So in March 2020, I moved to Berlin, and guys, you know probably what was happening around this time. March 2020, does it ring a bell? Yeah, COVID was happening. So with all these expectations I had about my new life, nothing of them, like my new life in Berlin, nothing of that came true, because eventually lockdown hit, and my business that I started as like a social media service for gastronomy dropped in revenue to zero. So I really had to start with a zero revenue. And well, there was some lucky coincidences that eventually like brought me to work in with websites and e-commerce, so I could slowly but steady build up like another pocket money, which just made me come through in Berlin. You know, I think it was around like 1,200 euros per month. And I'd say the first half year in Berlin was quite cool, but then things really got more and more strict. And it was by the time in March 2024 that I just, sorry, 2021, that I just couldn't do it anymore. You know, I was like in this unhappy relationship. I was like in this really state of solid isolation without any possibilities to really express yourself, to go out, to make new social contacts, which is such an important aspect of my life. And on top of that came the horrible German super cold and gray winter, which is even more depressing in Berlin. So yeah, I found myself in a state of depression. Like I never felt so bad. And really, when I think about this, I really get like sad, and I knew I was in bed, and I thought like, okay, if you're not gonna change something right now, you will stay unhappy and worse, you know? So I made the decision, and I canceled my relationship. I really canceled also my rental contract, and without having a lot of like financial security or something, just this pocket money I was talking about, I made the move. And I said, like, you always wanted to be a digital nomad, so also realize your dream. And it was on the April 15th of 2021 that I hopped on a plane to Mexico. And since then, I live fully traveling. And guys, why do I talk about this date so exactly? Because this really feels like the day I was reborn. Easily this like very radical change of having this unhappy life in Germany to becoming a full digital nomad was, I think, the best decision in my life. And I want to share with you what happened afterwards, after this 15th of April. And well, I've traveled over 25 countries, and not just traveled, I also had the opportunity to really live in Brazil and also live in Colombia and Argentina and really get to deeply connected with this culture. And not just the traveling was super fulfilling. No, also like my business was blowing up. Like, first of all, I was really struggling, but at the moment I really hopped on this plane. I don't know why, but suddenly the clients came to me, like the projects got bigger, and from really having this financial stability that let me travel freely, right now I'm producing 6 figures in annual profit, and my company has been growing around 300% in the last year. So I'm very proud of that. We're working now with a team of 10 people, something that I've never expected when I started. And this for me was just like the proof that making a successful career, making a career that's actually more meaningful to yourself, having your own thing, also can bring more money than your former boss has made and that you would have ever made in a like normal life, in having a normal job. And this everything is combined, can be combined with traveling, and not just that, that it's even complementary. And why that is, I'm going to tell you later in the advantages. Not too much about this now, like in the advantages of being a digital nomad. I want to talk about like more what happened apart from the business. And really, I made meaningful friendships and connections all around the world. I think this is one of the things that fill me the most, really knowing that in so many countries, I have friends that I'm deeply connected with, that I can visit, that have visited me on my travels. And yeah, I can really live my passion, live my dream life. And from that moment I was on the motorbike in Borneo, I think I realized what it is. And this is freedom and making constantly new experiences through travel. And living this dream for the last 3.5 years, both made me happy, as you can see, coming from a very unhappy place situation, to also grow personally and professionally.